AGK's Vinyl Life. I'm your host, Anthony K. And on this episode, I have brought back Miss Ellie Claire.
Hello.
You might all remember her from 2 summers ago when we did a nude and cheesecake album cover video of the 70s. Well, Ellie's back today to show us some more cheesecake and nude album covers. Some of them covers that were banned, and others that are just very racy, I guess you could say. But we had her, showing the albums last time, so I thought it was only appropriate to bring her back to do more. Last time we did the 70s. Today we got a big stack of records here from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And the reason I've got more than one decade this time around is because, of course, in the 90s and 2000s, there wasn't that much on vinyl. It was all on CD. I'm not showing any CDs. I'm only showing vinyl pressings. But please watch my previous parts. I did one on the 50s and 60s, cheesecake and nude album covers, and then, of course, the one with Ellie 2 years ago on the 70s. And I will link both of those videos in the comments below, in the description below. There'll be links to the previous 2 videos of this series. So I was long overdue for part 3. I had like 2 years. I'm long overdue for part 3. Probably there will be a part 4 of the 2010s, because when I was pulling all these records out to get ready for today's video, I had as many from the 2010s as I had from the 80s for 30 years, from the 80s to 2000s. The number of records that have nude photography on them in the 2010s has just blown up like crazy, because everything's desensitized now. Nothing is censored anymore like it used to be. Artists are putting themselves out there on record covers, and I'll save that for that video, but you'll see there's a lot of artists now that put themselves on their covers nude. It's crazy. But that'll be in the next video. Who knows, maybe I'll bring Ellie back for part 4 as well. But I'm going to show you basically here, guys. This is all 80s, 90s, and 2000s records. I haven't pulled everything I own because there's just so much out there. But in the 80s and 90s, in the 80s especially, censoring was still very, very, very high. Even the 90s there was some censoring, but like I said, as the years have gone on, I think things have de-escalated and desensitized, and what is allowed from the 70s to now it's a whole different world out there, especially with social media and the internet and so on coming up in the 90s. Things get desensitized and people's censorship values changed over the years. But we're going to start with 5, and the first 5, I think it is, or 5 or so, I did show in my Banned and Rare Records video, so we're just going to show these real quick. These were featured in my Banned and Rare Records video, which was very early on my channel. One of the earliest videos I ever did, and to this date is the most successful video on my channel. It's crazy. The videos had something like 17,000 views or something. And it still gets views to this day. I still get comments on that video to this day for something that I filmed very early in the career of my channel when I only had probably not even 100 subscribers. And now that video has had massive amount of views. So thank you guys for that. But Ellie here, of course, you guys watched we just did a live Q&A, so check that out. It'll be on my channel. It's on my channel now. By the time this video is out, it'll been on for a while, because this video will be coming out in a few weeks from when we're filming it. But Ellie is a Toronto art nude model. She did appear in Playboy Cyber Club. She was a Playboy Cyber Bunny back in 2018. But that's a long time ago. It's 2023 now. So Ellie has moved on from her days at Playboy, though it is a nice moniker to have on your portfolio. And she's an art nude model, and you can find her on Instagram, and her handle at your Instagram.
Ellie Claire Model, just on Instagram.
Ellie Claire Model on Instagram. Look her up, guys. Follow her. Photographers, if you're watching this video, give her a ring, give her a message, holler at her. She does travel all over the place. You're going to
LA
in
the end of September.
So by the time this video is out, she'll be going to, yeah, this is coming out in September. So anybody that's watching this in the LA area, look her up, hook her up, give her some work. All right, so let's get on with it, guys. So the first few were albums that were censored, that were banned. And the only version of this that's available is a Japanese pressing. This is Sniffin' the Tears. And what was the name of this album? Game On or something, wasn't it? I never remember the name of this album.
Game's up.
The game's up. It's been a while, guys. So the game's up. This is Sniffing in Tears. This came out after Driver's Seat. And like I said, this was featured in my other video, so I'm not going to spend much time on it. But as you can see, it had a girl with a boob out there. And they banned this record cover. And the record cover we got in North America was completely different. Next up, one that everybody should know. This album everybody should know. And this one is safe to show. It's just a bum. This is the pros and cons of hitchhiking from the early 80s, done by Roger Waters from Pink Floyd. I think it was his first solo album. And this one was banned as well because it had a bum on it. And what they did, there were two different versions of this album cover. One, they just put a little block over her bum, a little square block, black block. I think it was a black block or a yellow block or something. There was a block. They just painted over her bum. And other album covers, they actually removed the entire model from the album cover. So it was just a road. So it kind of defeated the whole point of the hitchhiking part of it. But that's the original banned cover of Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, Roger Waters. Okay, next up, Bon Jovi. And this is the third time I'm doing this take, guys. So Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet, featuring Livin' on a Prayer and You Give Love a Bad Name. The big breakout album for Bon Jovi. This album was banned because of a wet chest. And there's nothing really showing here. I mean, the cover made sense to the title. But I guess it was just the focus on the chest area that some people had a problem with. I think they should have kept the original cover, but that was the way censors were back then. So Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. And we'll put that one down because I've done this take 3 times. Next up, the infamous Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. I think there's not much to really just censor. It's called it was nicknamed the Rape cover. Of course, we all know Appetite for Destruction has the cross on it now. But this is the original Rape cover, as it was called, because you had an alien that had obviously done some nasty things to this girl here in the picture. So the Rape cover was banned, and this is actually a German pressing because it was the only place that you could find a pressing of this. So the Rape cover, Guns N' Roses Rape cover, was a big no-no for having a raped by a robot cartoon on the cover. Now we're going to move into the 90s here with this one. And this was 1990. This is Great White Hooked. And this album was also banned for the nude lady. And there's really hardly anything showing. I mean, she's even got kind of seaweed hanging over her nipples there. But it was banned. And so what they did is they lowered her down into the water. And so just her head is sticking out of the water on the fishhook, which kind of, if you go look it up on Discogs or whatever and look at the cover, it looks really lame the way they lowered her in the water. But that's the original cover, was banned. That was 1990, that album, and it was banned. So that's just a few things from my original video. And now we're going to move into some more things. And these ones weren't banned. And for example, this one wasn't banned, and it's from the early 80s. This is Rough Trade 12-inch single. That came out for, what's the name of the song? No Contact. No Contact. Rough Trade Mega Mix, the Deca Mix, which featured on the front, it had a boob, and on the back we had a guy. If you flip it over, we got a guy on the back.
Don't have to censor this one.
Don't have to censor that one. But yeah, we had a little nipple on the front of this 12-inch single. Rough Trade, Toronto band, Rough Trade. Another example there, and that was early 80s as well. Another famous person here. This is, of course, Samantha Fox. Touch me, I want to feel your body. Famous song. And, of course, Samantha Fox appeared in the UK newspaper, the UK Sun Topless, which caused a big hubbub back in the 80s. You had this topless girl making records. And if you look on the back of this one, as you can see, she's pretty scantily clad there in the Daisy Dukes and the high cut t-shirt and whatnot, but a little bit of Cheesecake on that album cover, and that's on late 80s one, mid 80s one there, and that's a 12-inch single as well for Touch Me, I Want to Feel Your Body. Now we have, we talked about this fellow before in the 70s video, Italian saxophone player Fausto Papetti, who made over 40 albums with nude covers. And so
what a guy.
They started in the 70s and they went well into the 80s. through most of the 80s. This is just one cover. This is one of the more respectable covers I was able to pull. But Fausto Papetti, those Italians, man, those Italians, all the Italians, you're going to see in a minute. Another Italian artist right here in a minute. But the Italians loved their nude album covers, and they went through the 70s and went through the 80s. All had naked women on the covers. And here's another one, Nino Rosso.
Almost censored,
Almost.
not quite.
Yeah, not quite. Nino Rosso, another Italian. This was an Italian disco. And once again, a nude girl on the cover. And there's no point to any of these covers with the nudity on them other than to obviously get you to buy the album cover. And I'm sure I bought a few album covers back in the day, and probably I still buy Cheesecake covers. I see a Cheesecake cover, I buy it because I'm a photographer. I collect Cheesecake covers. But back in the day, the only reason they ever did these was obviously to sell the album. Had nothing to do with the music. Now this one is from 1980. This one here. This is a disco album. One of the kind of a disco band towards the end of the disco area. And as you can see here, definitely showing a lot of leg and bent over the car with the bum up there and not much hiding. Barely covering her parts there, but. What did this have to do with the album? I don't know. She's bent over a car. What was the name of the album called?
Well, there's a song on there called Bondage and Domination.
There you go. Yeah, look at the Paradise Garage. That's what it was. Paradise Garage was this. Yeah, there you go. Bondage and Domination. She looks a little. Allie's kind of got a little bit of domination going here with her outfit, guys, today. Wouldn't she make a great cover, guys? Now this is a very famous band, our own Canadian Rush, and no, this is not much. It did have a girl with her skirt blowing up, and you can see her panty underneath. And if you look very carefully, it's very cold, and it's a little bit nipply out there on the album cover. So if you look carefully, but even big famous bands had to get a girl. I mean, on their cover of their album, and of course this is an iconic album, iconic cover. Of course, The Spirit of Radio, the great Rush song, all about Toronto radio station. But once again, we have a little bit of Cheesecake on the front of a Rush album cover. Here's another mid '80s band. These are the Models, and I think the cover speaks for itself.
So 80s.
It's so 80s. Yes, there she goes. So 80s. Wet, 80s hair, wet girl, bikini, and the top. She's actually got the top off, and she's,
very fierce facial expression.
Yeah. The Models. Well, at least it had a model on the cover, so I guess there's some sort of correlation in this one. Some sort. You like that one there, do you?
I like that one a lot.
You like that one?
It's very cheesy.
I know you like the cheesy stuff.
Yeah.
Now, here's an album cover that caused a lot of controversy when it was released. In fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, at one point they had actually shaded the side boob a little bit on it. And the reason that it caused, this is, of course, the Scorpions' iconic album, Love at First Sting, with, of course, Still Loving You on it, Bad Boys Running Wild, Big City Nights, big singles. People used to confuse this as a hair metal album, used to think Scorpions were hair metal when they were really just hard rock. And to this day, some people think Scorpions are metal, but they're really hard rock. But this album had massive controversy just because of the whole sexual connotation, the side boob, just too much passion going on this album cover. But the album cover did survive. It did stay, though I believe there was some instances where they just toned down the side boob a little bit.
This reminds me of the Chris Isaac music video.
Yeah,
where they're
I know
nude
what you're
and
talking
they're rolling
about.
all over the beach.
Yeah, back in the day, back in 1984 when this came out, big controversy when this album came out. It was a little bit too sensual. Next one we got is a mid 80s Jimi Hendrix album cover, and this was an EP for something that came out on VHS tape. There was a video that came out on VHS tape that featured these live tracks that are on this EP. But as you can see here, we've got there's the video on the TV and this mermaid here with a fish swimming by her boobs, watching Jimi Hendrix on TV. I don't know why, but that's what they came up with, obviously, to sell it. But I mean, it's Jimi Hendrix. They could have just put Hendrix on the cover and it would have sold. Come on, let's be real. But we got a mermaid with a fish swimming by her boobs, so it's whatever. Here's a famous album. Everybody probably knows this one. Mother's Milk, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Need I say more? Iconic album cover, but definitely in the Cheesecake vein with the band covering the naughty part of her boobs there. But a fantastic album cover. Just a fantastic album cover. an iconic album cover from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and that was mid-'80s as well, or late '80s. Next up, Jane's Addiction. And there, you might want to try to censor that one a little bit.
They've got pasties on.
Oh, they got pasties on? I can't remember. Yeah, they're iconic Jane's Addiction album cover. Such a fantastic album, but definitely pushing the boundaries of what could be shown on an album cover. I don't know if this one ever did get banned or not. I don't think it did. I think it did survive because of the pasties, but definitely heavy cheesecake going on in that one. The next is from a hair metal band. This is also late 80s, called Seduce. And what they've done is they've taken a nude girl here and they've done one of those, what do they call it, heat recognition photo thingies of her. So you can definitely see the outline of all the naughty bits there. But that's from the late 80s. That's a hair metal band, Seduce, with an obviously seductive picture on the cover. Now we have the Electric Light Orchestra Part 2. This was after after the band had kind of broken up and Jeff Lynne had gone one way and the rest of the band had gone another way. So they called themselves the Electric Light Orchestra Part 2, while Jeff Lynne was still calling it Jeff Lynne's ELO. And as you can see, we've got a kind of a side shot of a side boob here, and there's a little bit of bum there. But a naked girl that's looking out into the night for Electric Light Orchestra Part 2. Now from Jamaica, Soft Lee. Byron Lee and the Dragoneers, very, very famous Jamaican band. And I've got a few Dragon Lee albums. And just like the Italian disco albums and the Italian sax albums, Byron Lee and the Dragoneers would always put these scantily clad women on his album covers. And as you can see here, she's just topless and keeping things. But obviously to sell the album, they'd put her on the cover. Another great album cover. This is one of the last vinyl releases. When vinyl started to run out in the 90s, it's from 1991. This is Slaughter. And this is a super rare pressing. Mostly this was released on CD, though it did come out on. I'm happy to find this. I found this for $5.
Oh, yeah.
Sealed at a flea market. Sealed when these things go for close to $90. And I found this at a flea market sealed for $5. Slaughter's Stick It To You album. I think it's Stick It To You album with this. I love this picture. I think this is just a really, really great album cover. But obviously a very sexy girl in a one-piece lingerie piece here, up against the wheel, the knife wheel, with the knife being thrown at her. But I love this picture. I think it's an absolutely gorgeous piece of photography. But definitely Cheesecake. Now the famous, everybody knows this one. She'll cover the naughty part, I guess, even though it's pretty common now. Nirvana, the famous Nirvana album. This one did get censored. They did have to remove the little baby's dingle dangle between his legs, and it caused a lot of controversy for Nirvana's Nevermind, which has been reissued now. This is the latest reissue of it, which has the original cover art, but another controversial cover with nudity on it. This time a nude baby's little dingle dangle hanging in there. Is that a good word, dingle dangle? She's having a good time.
Okay.
Okay, now we have also from the 90s. This is also from 1991. This is the Mono Men and their album, Wrecker. Great album, but a topless girl on the cover of the album, and it did get banned, and they had to change the album cover to a girl that wasn't topless. This is a recent reissue where they've restored the original album art. Mono Men, great album. Wrecker. From early 90s, that one. Are we getting...
This is the one where I don't know how I'm going to possibly...
Yeah, now this one, I don't know how we're going to do it. This is just nasty on all fronts. Yeah, just look and enjoy Ellie's view here. This is Lords of Acid, Voodoo You, from 1999. This album, as you can see, it's got vagina, it's got boobs. I mean, it is all cartoon, but it's got a lot of devil girls doing a lot of nasty things to each other. You can maybe show the back a little easier. The back's not quite so bad. But there's a lot of things going on. A very sensuous cover. Lords of Acid, Voodoo You. And this is the red band remastered edition that came out a few years ago, and which has already been pulled. It's already out of print. And these particular prints now go for anywhere from $300 to $700 for the remaster. Original pressings of this album go for well over $900. But a really, really explicit, and she'll try to cover it again somehow.
Gosh.
A really explicit album cover from the Lords of Acid from 1999. Also from that same time period, we have Sugar Ray, and a great album cover. And I'm trying to remember the name of this model on here. She was a Playboy model, I believe, Playboy or Penthouse. One of those two magazines she appeared in, and Sugar Ray's album cover. And it's nothing showing there, but definitely, you know, what does it have to do with the album? It was called, what was the album called? Lemonade something. Lemonade and Biscuits. I don't see any lemonade and I don't see any biscuits. So, but I guess these are biscuits. I don't know. But definitely a sexy album cover. Next up there's 2 volumes of this one from 1995 and 1999. This is Electronic Toys, which is a comp of early 70s electronic Moog music. It's sort of like, you guys watching will know, the Brown Acid series. This is very much like the Brown Acid series, where they find all these obscure electronic pieces from the beginning of the electronic age with Moog synthesizers and so on. This is a comp collection of some really cool pieces of music. A lot of psychedelic in it, a lot of psych in it, a lot of early 70s electronic and prog and psych songs. And this is volume 1 of Electronic Toys, but they have got a naked lady on the front and back cover of the album.
I want to listen to these ones.
Yeah, very cool album. Very, very cool album. And that was from 95. And then in 1999, they made a volume 2 with the same model apparently on the cover. And I'm suspecting she might have been a Playboy model or something, just by the look of the poses and the hairdos and everything. But volume 2 of Electronic Toys, where we had naked girls on the front and back of the album cover. But great comp, guys. You want some really cool electronic Moog music comps, some really funky stuff. Electronic Toys, volumes 1 and 2 from the 90s. And now here's a band that 80s, 90s, the Cramps. The Cramps, everybody knows the Cramps, very popular band. I have a lot of Cramps albums, and most of the Cramps albums had women on the album cover in various very, very sexy, barely clothed things, such as this one where she's not wearing. In fact, this cover is another changed cover. There's 2 different versions of this cover as well. One where she's not got her legs open with the G-string, and another one where she has, like this one here. But sexy stuff there from the Cramps, who had just about every one of their album covers has something like that on their album covers. Now, Mr. Rob Zombie, who manages to get Sherry Moon Zombie on pretty much everything he does. She's in all his films. She's on all his album covers. But this is 1999's album cover. American made music to strip by, so it kind of makes sense. But there's Sherry Moon Zombie in all her glory on the cover of Rob Zombie's album. And she's on a few. I got a few other Rob Zombie albums, and she's pretty much never closed in anything she does. So, but it's Rob Zombie, so you know. Now this next album is very, very interesting. This is Porn to Rock, and maybe we'll just pull the record out. There we go. This is Porn to Rock, and this is a comp from 1999, made up of bands and artists that were all porn stars. Every one of these women on here were porn stars. They were all 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s porn stars, and they recorded songs. And if I read some of the songs on here and who did them, let's see how many of you people have watched porn in the 70s and 80s. We have Chloe Nicole doing Saboteur. Saboteur featuring Chloe Nicole doing Harder. We have Vinnie Spit featuring Mistress Jacqueline. These were all porn stars doing Asshole Man.
I need to listen to this one as well.
Yeah, it's actually, honestly, it's actually a really good spin. Like, some of these songs are crazy. It's actually decent. It's a real rarity. And if you open the inside, which I've got this sealed in the thing here, but inside it's got a gatefold that shows all the porn stars and has notes about all their songs. We've got Madison, famous porn star Madison. Let's see how many people in the comments know all these porn stars. Then we'll know who watched porn in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Madison, Man on the Moon. David Burrell, Who's Normal? He was a porn star guy. Marshall O'Boy, another guy. Screw My Head was his song. Johnny Toxic, another porn stud with Happy. Then we have Nina Wet, Drink Beer and Fuck was the name of that song. Midori, famous Asian porn star Midori with 5, 10, 15, 20. Candy Cane with the Meat Song.
Oh my god. The titles are just great.
Don't you love it? Jeffrey Karen Dorr featuring Stacy Q, good old Stacy Q, which is, I believe, and remember, this is Stacy Q on the back cover right here. This is Stacy Q. And their song, Little Red Riding Hood. Ginger Lynn, everybody probably knows Ginger Lynn. She was actually, Amber Lynn and Ginger Lynn were probably two of the biggest porn stars in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. Ginger Lynn with Fantasy World. Suji Suzuki, another famous Asian porn star with Calypso Shower. And then, of course, another famous 80s porn star, Hyapatha Lee, with Strike Back. So it's a comp of all these porn stars taking their stab at rock and roll. It's mostly rock on this, and almost some of it's almost punk. And porn to rock. Now we're getting to the 2000s. Just a few more guys and we're almost done. Christina Aguilera, who in the 2000s did Stripped, and she was in magazines. She did a whole photo shoot for this thing where she pretty much showed everything. I think she had just augmented her breasts at the time, so she was happy to show them off. But I think this is a gorgeous album cover. I think she looks just amazing on this album cover. But this is kind of the beginning of a lot of the 2000s fad of a lot of these pop divas really not dressing with a whole lot of anything on. But a gorgeous album cover by Christina Aguilera, but definitely Cheesecake. Pinup photography there. Stripped. Now alternative band Placebo, who have a couple pretty racy album covers. This album here, which was this album called? I can never remember. Sleeping with Ghosts. As you can see, we've got a naked ghost woman. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Scorpions album cover in a vague sense. Same sort of idea. A sensuous embrace with this guy and Ghost. When did Ghost the movie come out? Is it around the same time?
Yeah, I was just wondering that.
I was just thinking that, huh? But this is actually a cover, and this is kind of hard to get, and it was controversial at the time, and this was like 2002 when this album cover came out. And so there we have it. Placebo, and another Placebo album cover called Meds, where they've blurred out they kind of got a whole blurry thing going on. She's shaking her head, and they've blurred across the boobs here. But if you go on the inside gatefold, the girl's in full frontal nudity all through the entire gatefold of this album cover. Full nudity on the end. She's floating in the air on this one, Meds by Placebo, alternative band. And that was from like 2004 or 5, something like that. That followed this other album. And now the next one is Miss Britney Spears. And I got a little chuckle out of this one because Melinda Murphy, bless Melinda Murphy, the queen of the VC there, Melinda Murphy showed this album cover last week, which was last week at the time of filming this video. And she called this album cover racy. And I'd put in Melinda's comments, I go, Melinda, if you saw some of my album covers, your head would spin like Linda Blair and The Exorcist. Because if you call this racy, this was pretty much normal for the mid-2000s. The low-cut jeans, lots of midsection, all the artists, all the teenagers, all the young women were very much into the midriff. Midriff was a thing in the 2000s, the early 2000s.
And have your thong hanging out of your pants.
Yeah, and yes, the thong pulled up above the pants. So I know Melinda, I cracked up when Melinda called this racy, but I mean, yeah, it's sexy. It's a lot of skin there, and it's definitely pinup photography. Probably used to sell the album, but that's just what it was back then. That's what everybody was doing. And like I said, compared to some of the things I've been showing you guys today, this is pretty darn tame. You know, Britney was in her early 20s there, and it is what it is. And Britney, and in my next volume, you're going to see another Britney album cover where she's got a lot less on than that. She's basically wearing nothing. So stay tuned for that one. So Britney even jumping in on the pinup phase. And the last one from 2009, these are the Fuzz Tones. And as you can see, we've got a mirrored image of a girl, topless girl, clearly wearing a G-string, playing the saxophone. And this is a cool album, guys. Really great album. It's sax. It's rock and roll with a little bit of sax thrown in. kind of Cramps styled even almost. But the Fuzz Tones, great album. But once again, you know, obviously a little bit of sex on there. You know, they're the Fuzz Tones. People don't really know who you are, so let's throw a couple pretty ladies on the album cover to sell the album cover. And that's it. That's all. I hope you guys enjoyed this. But before we go away, I'm just going to let you see this station identification. And we're back. Thank you, Ellie, for another volume. Oh, she's shaking my hand. Give me a hug better. There's a hug. There we go. And there you go, guys. I hope you all enjoyed this video of Cheesecake and nude album covers from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. There will be one more volume coming in the future. I don't know when, and maybe I'll invite Ali back to do that one as well, where we look at the 2010s, where things have just pretty much exploded now. The amount of nudity on covers in the last 10, 12 years is crazy. But there you go. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
See you soon. See you guys all soon in my next video. And as I always say, rock and roll! So this is Bon Jovi's Slippery When Wet, the famous album with You Give Love a Bad Name, and what's it? I'm drawing brain freeze today, guys. What were the big songs on here? I'm a cowboy, right? I'm a cowboy. What's it? Oh, damn. Raise your hands without... I got my... Never mind, guys. Never mind. But of course, this is, of course, Bon Jovi's big breakout album with Living...
Living on a prayer. You're halfway there, living on a prayer.
Oh, fuck. Okay, reset. Reset. Oh, my God.
That's funny.